Microsoft SPLA is a service provider license agreement. So I hope those of you who came here consciously, actually looking at the name of the event, you probably understand what we're going to be talking about. But if you don't, effectively service providers, when they provide you virtual machines, or if you want to become a service provider, you want to provide Microsoft licenses, Windows Server, SQL, you have to sign for a Microsoft SPLA licensing program. And we deal with providers, me and my guest, on a daily basis. We've seen hundreds of different providers. And what we wanted to talk today about is what are the top 5 things that service providers need to fix in how they manage their SPLA. Because I'll be honest, we see it on a daily basis. SPLA is not properly managed. Providers make mistakes in calculating licenses, in putting the right legal framework around their services to be compliant with the Microsoft's terms. And we'll obviously talk about it today with, so there'll be me and my guest, Bahadir Durak from Octopus Cloud. Octopus Cloud is a company that has, in my opinion, the best SPLA management tool. And to be honest, there's not much competition. So there are only 2 tools that really work these days. All the rest just doesn't deliver all the necessary things for SPLA. And thus his main target audience is, his target audience is service providers. And our company helps providers go through audits. And hello, everybody. Welcome to our channel. Sorry for such a long roll in. Bahadir, a couple of words from you maybe before we jump into the topic of 5 things to fix in your SPLA.
Not much. So thank you very much, Sasha, for having me in the call. And I think you did a quite well introduction. I'm the founder and CEO of Octopus Cloud, a SPLA management platform that we built together with former Microsoft employees. And on top of our tool, or around our tool, is of course a lot of processes, a lot of other knowledge needed. And for that, we partner with you guys, and we are very happy with our partnership. And thank you for the invitation again, so that we can share our insights with the community.
Thanks, Bahadir. And without further ado, I'll jump into the 5 things to fix in your SPLA. But what we did actually, we thought of putting together a consolidated list between ourselves. But then I thought that would be an interesting idea to ask Bahadir to put his own list, and then ask our team in SAMexpert to put their own list. And I didn't even interfere with the members of my team, the people who actually deal with audit defense and SPLA management projects, including our chief project manager, Scott, our data analysts. And you'll see the lists kind of intersect, but not completely. And Bahadir provides here a much more management level view, which I agree with, by the way. So Bahadir's first item, I'm going to list them all so you can see the differences and the similarities before we jump into discussing every single nitty-gritty line item here. Management commitment to compliance, educating your team and customers on SPLA. So again, Bahadir will explain it to us. Create visibility of assets, and we're talking about inventory, tooling. Control and audit user access. And I love this one specifically. You should train a team. One person can't do it all, which I absolutely agree with. You will see now how our list differs. And this is the consequence of dealing with audit defense exercises. Audit user access and security groups. Bahadir, you can see that it's the same as your number 4. Yes. Check SQL and Office editions. Purely technical, but gets so many providers on a daily basis. Again, we'll get back to it. Deploy SPLA tool. Everybody agreed on this. This is point number 3. Have clear bring your own license terms, because clients bring the licenses. You need to have clear terms of how they can do this. What they're responsible for. Again, we're going to talk about it in deeper details. And maintain your Active Directory. So As you can see, they're kind of similar, but they differ. And we'll explain our points of view in the next 40 to 50 minutes. So, Bahadir, I think I'll pass the word to you. Let's go through your list. Just tell us stories. If I have a question, I'll ask you a question, and we'll just continue this conversation. Please.
Of course, thank you very much. So my number one management commitment to compliance is, so we see a lot of audits happening, and what we often feel or see is that management took never license compliance, let's say, not, I mean, they take care of security compliance and everything, that's for sure. But license compliance is also an important topic, and we have the feeling that management has no clue about license compliance. They have no software asset management processes in place or controls in place to make sure that they stay compliant. And really, one of the most dangerous things that I also see when I speak to C-level people is that they think that their partner account manager at Microsoft will somehow help them during an audit and make sure that they don't get a penalty or whatsoever. You know, they have the feeling that they have a strong relationship with Microsoft PDMs, and these PDMs can save them in case of an audit. But believe me, I saw service providers reporting more than 200, 300K per month, which, you know, and they have dedicated account managers and everything, but these guys were not able to help them in case of an audit. And because of that, what I try to achieve here is a motivation to everyone in the C-level that they become more proactive, you know, take this topic, license compliance, into their agenda and work on it on a daily basis to make sure that they are safe in case of an audit.
Can I really want to pick on this topic because it's quite complicated. I used to consult in the previous years. I used to consult the European community of service providers, and I spoke to them all, and they basically said licensing is actually not even on that top priority list. They, especially in Europe, they have hundreds and hundreds of regulations and legislation and rules applying to service providers, IT companies, of security rules, GDPR, and all that. And they only remember about licensing when either they get an audit or something terrible happens, like Broadcom's acquisition of VMware. That was a big one. That's when licensing suddenly became subject number two, not number one, number two. Otherwise, it really falls through, and it's somewhere there, almost like a nuisance. And I think, in my opinion, what these C-level people don't understand is, and I'm myself the CEO of the company, and I have lots of things on my plate. And some things I just try to kind of push under the carpet, let it, I'll fix it later. Or I'll find somebody to fix it for me. And then it gets forgotten. Because maybe they're scared by the complexity. And maybe they have these wrong assumptions that Microsoft will jump to help them. Resellers will jump to help them. Resellers used to help. Now the whole knowledge in the SPLA resellers is completely washed out because people who are really good SPLA experts, they either forgot about it or they just moved on.
Yeah.
And I think what needs to be communicated to them is actually it's not rocket science. Sorry, for some reason Siri decided to talk to me and explain to me what science is. So it's not rocket science. They just need to basically fix the basic things. Topic of today's conversation, by the way. And it will just become better. It's not a set it and forget it thing. You need to hire somebody to manage it. But then the most pressing, the most dangerous things in an audit are not that difficult to fix. So what do you have anything to say on this?
Yeah, I fully agree. And I think we will discuss this, especially 2 points, a bit later when we talk about inventory, for example, or user access.
Mhm.
And what I would like to add on top of what you said is, management, especially service providers, I think for them, managing or doing software asset management practices is something business critical, because end customers, if they outsource some things to service providers, they really rely on them. They trust them, and if you are then later faced with compliance issues and everything, it can cost you a lot. Really, it can be business critical. And because of that, yeah, as you said, really, they need to take this topic much more serious. I have the feeling it should be on the management agenda, even though I know everyone has much more other topics, but this is also one of the business critical things. And really, worst case, it can cost your entire business. So because of that, um, I think you need to educate your entire team, build your internal departments, and so on. And I fully agree with you. It's not rocket science. You can get help from companies like ours, so that we can very quickly build such a practice, so that you have sorted the things out.
Yeah, in the on the subject of educating your clients, I also fully agree with you that it's important. And look at, by the way, if somebody wants to DIY, look at what Microsoft, oh, sorry, not Microsoft, what Amazon does. Look at their Microsoft licensing documentation. It's brilliant. I I wouldn't say, I might disagree with the wording, but they are spot on. And the way they also put together the legal framework for bring your own license, and explaining the clients their responsibilities, and actually delineating that responsibility between themselves and the clients. It also has an educational element in it, the way they're written. So it's important. And also, Bahadir, you just said something that actually not teaching your clients Microsoft licensing can undermine your business and can undermine the relationship and trust. That is so true. That is so true. So dealing with bring your own license, and instances when clients would bring licenses without knowledge of what licenses can be brought, provider just basically out fully just putting this on the shoulders of the clients, and then during an audit something is found, and the provider goes back to the client and says, at the time of the audit, oh, you've had this issue for a couple of years. You shouldn't have brought this. You shouldn't have done this. You actually should have paid us for a SPLA license to have this product on the platform. Something like this. There's a dispute about who is responsible for what, who should have paid for what. And in so many cases, I would say the overwhelming majority of cases, the clients come back and say, frustratingly, why didn't you tell us?
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell us? We would have paid.
Yeah.
So they're not deliberately trying to trick the system or being pirates. We're not in the 90s these days. They genuinely just, again, because licensing is not on anybody's top 10,
Yeah.
top 10 priorities, they just genuinely thought, "Oh, it's fine, it's been taken care of," as you just said, by the provider. And then there's this element of frustration. You can deal with it. It can be calmed down. The relationship could be restored. It's possible. It's manageable. But there's a way to avoid being in that situation.
Absolutely. I fully agree. Where I see also the issues at service providers is, most of the time what we see is there is an infrastructure team, and there is, on top of the infrastructure, there are the service delivery teams per customer. And these two departments really don't talk to each other. And I think if they would have transparency, visibility into the infrastructure, and talk to each other, they could really save a lot of money. They could also increase, revenue for sure. Sometimes for example, also I see, for example, what was deployed, what was made available to customers, and what they pay you. There is a big difference, so customers are also growing. They start maybe with 100 users. In a year they have maybe 150 users, and you don't even charge them, so service providers also lose a lot of money by this miscommunication or not taking this topic serious.
I can relate to this. The first time I saw a case like this, it was mid 2021, and the company provided SAP hosted services. So SAP applications hosted in a terminal server. And with the majority of the clients, they would sell a service to 20 users. They request them to increase the number of users, would come to the infrastructure team, completely circumventing the sales team. The infrastructure team, why would they ask? There's no process. Would increase the number of users. Therefore, the liability to Microsoft was growing because you have to pay for these licenses. But the client wasn't paying for those licenses. So the sales team or the client relationship team wasn't even aware. And then when we brought it to their attention, I rarely see that level of panic when they realize that now they have to go back to the client and say, you actually have to pay 10 times what you've been paying. It's very difficult to communicate it to the client, even if the client is aware. And by the way, I would give you one advice: don't be afraid. So when that was communicated to the end clients, and clients basically just said, "Fine. Why didn't you bill us?" So it wasn't that bad, but still, that could have been avoided if they had visibility of assets, as you just put in your line number 3, and our point number 3 is exactly the same. You need
Sasha,
visibility.
before we go to the next level, I have also one example. I saw a service provider from the DACH region where the service delivery team made a contract with the end customer, and in this contract was mentioned that the end customer can use up to 20% more than they have agreed in this agreement without further costs. I mean, how can you sign such an agreement? I mean, of course you can do it, but you will for sure lose revenue. Everything will cost you more. But of course, they think they will not license this to additional 20% or whatever, or they also don't invoice it. But this kind of deals, can cause big financial problems. And yeah, because of that, I think again the number 2 is very important here.
That is a big difference, 20%. I mean, how much it could be a margin on a hosted service? 10%, 15%? Realistically, maybe in some cases 5%. And you're effectively just eating away the margin because auditors won't forgive you. Well, I mean, you will have to talk to them, and not to them even, to Microsoft, and you will have to explain yourself. Or Microsoft will say, yeah, we completely understand. Just take a little bit of Azure, and we'll understand everything. Give us more money. Don't pay us the penalties. It's fine. But you can't just go away. Commit to something. Commit to spending money with us. So do you want to be in that position? Probably not. I would make this bold assumption. So yeah. But let's talk about visibility of assets.
Yes. So what I can say here is really, we as Octopus, whenever we have a new prospect, and the cost of our software is based on the number of servers. So if we ask the service provider, okay, how many servers do you have? More or less, just a rough estimation. Really, from the 500 customers that we have, like 90% have no clue, or they are so far from the real numbers. And if you even don't know how many servers you have, more or less, then how do you really do your licensing? So how do you bill your customers and so on? So, and then if we start to scan, we discover so many issues. What was installed versus what was reported or licensed, and how many users have access to this and to that. And there's so much unknown stuff going on in the data centers, and yeah, because of that, we really highly recommend to create a visibility into your infrastructure to see what hardware you have, what virtual machines that you have, what is installed in the virtual machine, which applications, and who is using what, and how much, and so on. So this is like the foundation of everything. If you don't have that, there is no optimization really possible, I think.
So people watching this video or live may think, okay, fine, you are a tool developer, so you're biased. You'll tell us, buy my tool, buy my tool, buy my tool. We are not a tool company. So let me add something from my point of view to justify what you just said. And this is why we said, always say as well, deploy as tool. It's because every time we are in an audit defense exercise, and we've done over 100, and we do 10 to 20 a year, every time on the kickoff call with the client, even if the client says, we have full control, we have scripts, we have visibility, do you have a tool? Do you have a specialized tool that gathers all the data? I always tell them, Braze will find something. We will find something you are not even imagining is happening in your infrastructure. And we find it every time. I can even bet my money that if I go to a provider that didn't specifically prepare for this bet, I will win. There's always something. And the amount of that always something. So if you absolutely have no specific instrumental control, we even have a formula inside the company, which we already disclose, usually only in our videos, but we don't really speak publicly much about it. If we ask somebody, what do you think is your SPLA exposure risk? The number that they give us, CIOs, CTOs, is usually 5 to 10 times lower than their actual exposure. So if they say it's probably 10 million, then it could be 100 million. Exactly because there is no concise, good, overarching, ubiquitous visibility of the assets, of every single nitty-gritty thing in their state. And unfortunately, licensing is not an approximate discipline. It's very precise. Formulas are precise. You can put them in Excel. You can use a tool. You can collect data somehow else. You put the numbers in Excel, and it gives you an approximate number. Not it's probably between 1,000 and 2,000 users. It's exactly 1,031 user, for example, and that is what's missing.
Yes, and if we talk about this topic more in a, let's say, not as a risk, so to say, but I also see a lot of opportunities behind this point. So if you as an organization want to become a data-driven organization, which I think every service provider should be, if you want to do, for example, migration decisions or licensing or billing and everything, so there's so much opportunities behind visibility and having clear transparency about your infrastructure, about your assets, and you can automate a lot of the processes. If you have a single source of truth, you can build your dashboards and win insights about customer usage behaviors, and so this topic I would like to highlight, especially because, again, reducing risk is one thing, but I also see a lot of optimization opportunities behind having a visibility of assets.
Yeah, you start asking questions like, is this service really profitable? Mm-hmm. What is the cost? What is the cost of delivery? So if it's not just a purely cloud hosting service, but there may be applications hosted or something like that, you can actually look at the actual statistics of the service, not imagine them. You can take it from the tool. You can calculate licenses that are required to provide this service. You can see what hardware is used in providing these services. You can start kind of thinking, shifting stuff around, optimizing and reorganizing. It's almost impossible to do an optimization. And when I say optimization, here's another number. Our friendly provider that that used to be our client. We engaged with them, helping them with an audit, actually. But we still talk, we still meet, and we still go to restaurants together when I'm there in their country. I'm not going to disclose what country that is now. They reduce their licensing cost by 30% without changing anything in terms of what services they deliver.
Mm-hmm.
But they listen during an audit when we raise questions. Why do you have Linuxes and Windows mixed? Or why do you use AMD processors with so many cores? Is that justified? So they listen to all of that, and they optimize their estate themselves. So we push them in the right direction, and they did it themselves. They called me back this year and said, I think it was January, February, they said, we reduced our cost by 30%. And every time I speak to somebody about reducing SPLA costs, everybody's like, oh, why would we care? Because we recover that from our clients. We get a margin on top of that. It's when you resell them. I can understand that. But what about the average cost of a virtual machine in your estate? You don't resell that. You can reduce it. What about when you provide hosted services or hosted application where you charge not for licenses, but for this service? Don't you want that 30% for yourselves instead of wasting it? And by the way, this is so again, an outsider's view of the story of Octopus. I think Octopus Cloud really crossed that threshold of a business mature tool when you went through the first stages of compliance and then started introducing these, financial modules and billing and then you look at the tool and think, this is something that is much more than just licensing compliance.
I remember when we started, or even today, when we have a brand new customer, then it's very, or let's say an opportunity or a prospect, and it's very difficult to sell them in the beginning the software asset management solution, services, and everything. But really, everyone, after using for 6 months the tool, or let's say 1 year, they then realize, oh, okay, with this data I can do this, I can do that, and then we see much more engagement, and then of course we partnered like you, Sasha. We started to discuss other topics than just all the time audit and risk reduction, and it goes then over more to process optimization, process automation, and making sure that we bill correctly so that we don't leave money on the table and so on.
Let's move on because, well, time is running out. We've been through half of this live. I want to actually go back to the number 1 on our list, which is number 4 on your list, which is exactly the same. What we found is in just general providers, not specialized specific infrastructure as a service or SaaS applications. What we found is that 80% of the risk, sometimes in monetary values, 80% of the risk, is actually related to user licenses. And one of the mistakes made by a lot of people in this industry is just looking at the core-based licenses, which is Windows Server, operating system, and database SQL Server. That's it. This is under control. It's all good. We'll approximate the number of user licenses we require. And then they get shocked when they get a report from an audit, or not necessarily from an audit. We can come with an internal assessment. We can just assess the risk. And 80% of the monetary value of a perceived debt to Microsoft is in user licenses. And that is the thing that as opposed to infrastructure services and servers, that changes almost on a daily basis. New users come, new users are deployed, service groups are created, users leave, still remaining in the security groups, and it piles up. It almost snowballs. And I'm not even, well, I have to mention this. Out of 100 cases, we only had 2 cases when the provider didn't have in any single instance, in any single client, domain users authorized to access the service remotely, or even worse, authenticated users. So those mistakes are not usually deliberate, or they're not even known to the IT. Somebody at some point was fixing a server. They had limited time. They wanted to test something, admins in the infrastructure team, and they decided it's right now it's too difficult, or we don't understand why it doesn't work. They will apply a quick fix just by letting every single user to access the terminal server instead of figuring out, what nested security groups provide access and why is it not working. And then they don't fix it. So it was a temporary measure, and that temporary measure sits there for 2 years. So what happens in this case is that mistake costs millions. If an organization has 5,000 users, and that hosted SAP application only requires 100 people to access it, and they build for 100 users again, you let every user access the server. They don't even access it. They don't ever use it. But the licensing rule is you gave them access, you have to pay. It's really that simple. You gave them access, you have to pay. It's brutal. It's not common sense, but licensing is not common sense. Never put an equal sign between licensing and common sense. Licensing is licensing. And without auditing on a regular basis, and I'm talking daily, security group access, and minimal is once a month, and preferably not just before you're about to send your report to your SPLA resell. It gets everyone. So if you haven't done it, if you're listening to us now live, if you're watching a recording of this session, if you want to address just the technical issues, I'm not talking organizational, what Bahadir was just talking about, that is the first thing you need to fix. Find a way to have full transparency of all your security groups and access to remote desktop and applications published in the remote desktop. And a tool solves it.
Yes, because there is also a lot of different methodologies how you can give access. So there is app locker settings and TFS rules, remote desktop settings. There are tools like Citrix where you can manage access, and then so having complete control of everything is really very, very, very important. And really, I also, again, if we talk more opportunistic, I also believe there is so much money to save if you really track the inactive users as well. So we had a couple of customers, and we just compare HR systems with Active Directory data, or analyze which user was active when, and see in the HR system if they are still working in the company or not. There's so much money to save, really. Everyone is telling me, like, you always talk about risk and so on, but here is really a very good example about opportunity, how you can really very quickly save a lot of money, I think. Do you have similar experience as well with the inactive users, Sasha?
That's point number 5 on my list. Not only inactive users, leavers.
Yeah.
Here's a real story, and it's really difficult to understand what was it deliberate, or somebody made a mistake, or there were changes in the configuration. The problem is without a SPLA tool, when you get in an audit and you just run auditor scripts, is you only see what's currently visible, what's currently there. If something was brought in, but it was created in a different data center 4 years ago, it appears as if it was there 4 years ago. If there were users that were added to a security group a month ago, it's a fresh security group. The security group creation date is not gathered by auditor scripts. So it may appear that all these users in that security group existed 4 years ago. So without a specialized tool that takes monthly snapshots, it's almost impossible to track that back. So you have to find additional evidence. And we dealt with a provider that went through an acquisition. So they acquired many other companies, and they inherited all that nightmare. And when we did an assessment, we found that the perceived just replicating the way audit process works. The perceived debt to Microsoft for user licenses was in 7 figures, could be completely mitigated by getting rid of leavers, people who left the company ages ago, disabled leavers, out of the security groups, just not even deleting the records. You may have to keep them for legislative purposes, regulation. It could be legal purpose, it could be medical purpose. You have to keep them. But why do you keep them in the security groups? This is why we say number 5 on our list: maintain your Active Directory on a monthly basis. And this is not a joke. The average number of users that could be deleted from security groups across 100 audits that we saw is 30%. 30%. This is a massive dead weight, which is not necessarily in the right place. And I'm being very British when I say that.
Yeah, I can 100% confirm that. One of the biggest problem in audits and in compliance cases, and also in cost optimization cases, really. Very good point.
I just want to answer one question. If there'll be a recording, there will be a recording. So recording will be available on LinkedIn, on our YouTube channel, which is, if you type in your browser SAMexpert.tv, you'll get to our YouTube channel, where all these videos are actually much more organized than on LinkedIn. And these days, more people watch us on LinkedIn Live than on YouTube Live. That's why I'm saying that. And I want to move back to the topic of accuracy of inventory and mistakes. They're not deliberate. Mistakes made by infrastructure teams when they deploy software, which is, we have this comment, think if they have installed SQL Enterprise. Happens all the time. The problem for those who are unaware, and the majority of people are unaware, so please listen. The problem with Microsoft SQL Server, which is a database software, is that there's only one installation media for all the editions. And when instructions are not clear, what do the IT people do? They choose the best edition, and Enterprise is the best edition. The problem with SQL Enterprise is that it costs 4 times more than SQL Server Standard. The client could be paying you for SQL Server Standard. You could be reporting SQL Server Standard to Microsoft. What you're reporting to Microsoft for SQL Standard doesn't matter. That money you will never recover, but you're not paying for the right edition SQL Server Enterprise. Again, we're going back to the topic of visibility of assets. And I'll drop another fact here. I find it every single time, at least one instance where it should have been cheaper SQL Standard, free of charge SQL Express, free of charge SQL Developer, but by mistake, during the installation process, they deployed SQL Server Enterprise. And if there's no control, if there's pure trust, you have a record in your sales, we installed SQL Standard. How do you know that is SQL Standard? And that gets a lot. So this is after user licenses, SQL Server is the second biggest value on the audit bill.
Yeah.
Fixable with the visibility of all your assets.
I would like to add here on top, it is even possible to install SQL Server Standard, but activate services that count as an enterprise feature. Even though you installed SQL Server Standard, it could be that you need to license SQL Server Enterprise because you activated some services. And it is also very important to discover this kind of information. And yeah, because of that, again, visibility of your assets, to know what is installed is, of course, the basic information that you need. But on top, you really need to, analyze additional information, which is really licensing relevant. And because of that, of course, I need to mention your point 3 as well. So, you need a specific tool for SPLA as well. A typical software asset management tool that you use for volume licensing is not the same as we have, for example, at Octopus. We cover everything that is important for SPLA licensing, and yeah, we cover that, for example, with the services. We make sure that we know exactly what services are running in a SQL environment, and make sure that you don't do this kind of mistakes that can cost you later a lot of money.
Yeah, I kind of admire your meticulousness with the approach, and I absolutely agree with the worst case scenario. But I remember my first conversations with your support team when we had to deal with clients with Octopus installed, and me going back to your support team and saying, "Oh, guys, come on, it's SQL developer. It's probably used for development." And we're like, yeah, and your support team said, "No, no, unless there's evidence that it's actually used for development, unfortunately, it requires a SQL Enterprise license." And I agree. I agree, because things like this need to be caught and they need to be addressed sometimes outside of the tool. So the tool just warns you, you have this problem potentially, and this is the cost. Because if an auditor finds that it's used in production, I'm sorry, you have to pay for SQL Enterprise. It doesn't matter that you deploy SQL Developer Edition. But if you can prove, if you have evidence that it's a development machine, and the provider didn't deploy it. See, lots of things that need to be ticked, boxes ticked, that the provider didn't deploy it, the client deployed it and made the provider aware what is deployed for, then you can get an exception. So specialized tools, again, normal, just, I don't want to go through specific names, I don't want to mention them today, but normal SAM tools, they don't cut the mustard here, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
Sasha, what I also would like to add, an important detail is really, we are nitty gritty, focus on every detail. But the reason why we do this is not, to sell you guys more licenses or whatever. So we are not a SPLA reseller. We are not Microsoft. We don't care. We are
we
really
don't care.
always on the side of the service provider. So all what we do, the intention behind is really to reduce your risk and make sure that you exactly pay what you need to pay, and not more, not less. So we are 100% on the side of the service provider. And it can be that in the beginning, we are a bit maybe more, sorry for my words, a pain in the ass for you for service providers to clean up everything first, but afterwards, I think, or I'm quite confident, that we can discover a lot of opportunities together and optimize a lot of things together. So I sometimes also have the feeling, service providers are sometimes, scared, what we do with this kind of information and so on. But really, everyone can relax here. We are really, I know SAMexpert and Octopus Cloud, we're here 100% here for the service providers, and we want to make sure that you pay less at the end of the day.
Microsoft don't talk to us. I actually tried to reach out to Microsoft recently to help them promote SQL Server with Azure Arc, which is their flagship product. And there are people at Microsoft who are heftily rewarded by selling SQL Server with Azure Arc. And it's one of those cases when I think that's a good initiative. It doesn't work for everyone. Don't jump on it. Don't just go, oh, we want to deploy it everywhere. It doesn't work for everyone. But there are use cases where it brilliantly fits into the way a certain service provider does their business. And we wanted to start promoting it, getting a bit more information from helping Microsoft. But they don't talk to us because they know that SAMexpert that works against Microsoft normally, usually. So we I think we're kind of blacklisted there. So, by the way, if people from Microsoft are listening to me, and if you are responsible for SQL with Azure Arc, send me a DM, please. I'm trying to help you. But again, we are independent. We work against Microsoft in many cases, and things that we discuss with providers are always confidential. We will never disclose them, not to a vendor, not to a reseller, come on, not to anyone. Bahadir, actually, I'm jumping around this because somebody left us this comment at the very beginning, too many teams of one, and that is related to your point number 5. So let's stop talking about nitty-gritty for a while. We'll get back to it. A few of the last minutes, I want to mention a couple more points here. But I really like that point that you made, that you need to train a team looking after compliance, not one person. And unfortunately, that's what we see as well. There is one person, the only one person in the entire organization that knows more than an average person about SPLA. And if that person leaves the company, that knowledge is lost. That's first thing. And the second is, even in small providers, we also find that it's not enough to have just one person. They're usually overwhelmed. They usually, if they work 40 hours per week, as in any, I would say, civilized country, it's not enough time.
Yeah. No, and the funny side effect, the funny thing to mention here is also always the one person that is doing everything is the one that is very close to retire. Whenever I meet a service, but the guy that knows everything is, will be retired in a couple of weeks. That's also always funny, always to see. But yeah, what I want to mention here is, SPLA is on one side licensing, but on the other side it is, operations. On another side, it is sales, it is procurement, it is compliance, it is maybe also, financial forecasting, and so on. There are so many disciplines, in the SPLA program that an organization should cover. So because of that, I don't believe that a one person within an organization can manage everything. And because of that, I really recommend to all the organizations, to all the service providers, build your internal SPLA team, train them, and make sure that everything is aligned and the processes are documented, your history is documented, and everything. And if you need support in that, I know it's maybe a bit difficult, in the beginning to set this kind of organizations up. But then, Sasha, I think you're the best guy that can help the service providers building such
Thank you for
teams.
that. Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say we're the only company in the world, but the number of companies that know how to manage supply is, I know them all. I can count them on the fingers of one hand worldwide. So, but when you deal with an expert like this, they will help, and we will help. I mean, why would I not say that? And the last thing I want to discuss on our list is bring your own license terms. So, say a tool finds that there's something deployed in your estate that is not licensable, or an auditor, God forbid, runs the scripts and you find, without reviewing the scripts, without reviewing your estate, you just jump straight into an audit and you find that something is there that maybe the end client brought in. There's a whole topic of the legal framework around bring your own license. And what we find is that, again, Amazon is a good example. Unfortunately, overwhelming majority of providers don't write their master services agreements, terms of service, in a way that protects them from potential audit penalties. Because by default, this is very important to understand. It's not common sense. Again, licensing is not common sense. It's what Microsoft or Oracle or SAP told you to do with their licenses. By default, the service provider is responsible for every tiny thing that is deployed in the service provider's estate, in the service provider's data centers, or those service or virtual machines they ran from another provider. So you are responsible for every single thing. Whether that you deployed it, your admins made a mistake, your clients brought it deliberately, your clients brought it unknowingly, you are responsible. So this whole bring your own license terms is a big subject. So first of all, I wouldn't say nobody. And I'm not exaggerating, over 100 cases. Almost nobody includes end user license terms in the end client agreements. And there's a benefit of end user license terms. First of all, it answers to the question that your clients may ask during an audit, like, why would we give you access and why would we scan our environment? Because it's in the end user license terms that you had to sign with them. Why would we collaborate with Microsoft? Because it's in the end user license terms. It's part of the SPLA license. You have to sign it with your end client, but not only that. Clear definition of the services, where bring your own license is allowed, where it's not allowed, where you only provide Windows Server licenses and nothing else. This must be clear, because In the last year, because we've been preaching this for the last 2 years, even auditors now, funny enough now, during kickoff calls, say exactly the same speeches. They say, if you have services, they didn't do this a year ago. If you have services where you only provide Windows Server, please provide us upfront evidence that they're defined, that your end clients know about it, and that your end clients are responsible for every other Microsoft software they deploy there. Even auditors give you a chance to avoid excessive penalties. It's an immense importance, that. And also when bring your own license is known, you need to have evidence of BYOL, some kind of evidence. If you are a old school license mobility partner, you have to have license verification forms. That's almost dying. If you're a CSP hoster, you have to gather evidence of bring your own license by the terms of the CSP hosting program. You don't have to report now every single nitty-gritty thing, but you're still responsible for gathering the evidence. And you actually have only, I think it used to be 1 day, now 10 days to stop the service if you think that the client is not using valid licenses. But even if you are just a generic provider, you can also allow them to bring licenses, and there are no reporting requirements on you. What would you do in an audit if they ask you that question? How do you prove? And you have to prove. Nobody takes your words for granted. You have to prove. How do you prove that that SQL Server is brought by the end client? Have something. And that in a tool, if you have a specialized tool like Octopus Cloud, you flag that instance as bring your own license. And then you also can upload evidence. So when you ask for it, it's already there. It's all there. It's organized. It's attached to specific instances. So yeah, and this is not an advertisement of Octopus Cloud, but I want you to consider, as an expert in this area, think about it. Because we find that audits don't go away. They don't disappear like this if you have a tool. But if you have a tool, they go smoother, quicker, much less disruptive. And the amount of surprises you get is almost nothing compared to when you have no visibility of your estate.
Yeah. What I would like to add here is really this bring your own license is a benefit from Microsoft's perspective. And it has some certain circumstances. It has a start point and the end point, where you can benefit from this and so on. And you really need to manage it. It's not just something that you can agree with the customer quickly in a talk and then it's done. So you really need to document it. You need to check, for example, the software assurance end dates and make sure that you have a solution that when the customer is not renewing his software assurance or so, what will happen afterwards and so on. It requires us everything, a proper management, a proper documentation historically, over time, not just once.
Yeah, what Bahadir just said is, for those who are unaware, Microsoft licensing is very unfair in regards to bring your own license. You can't just take any license and bring it to a service provider estate. You need to play by specific rules. And in general, it must be some kind of a subscription. Either you're paying for so-called software assurance, or it's just a subscription license, but you must recurringly pay to Microsoft. And when you stop paying, you cancel subscription, you cancel software assurance. Even if you have a perpetual license that stays with you forever, that license may not anymore be used on the service provider. So that is something that, if you can track expiration of those licenses, is a great thing. And if you're a CSP hoster, you have to track expiration of licenses. It's your obligation. If you're a license mobility partner, old school license mobility partner, you have to track expiration of such licenses. So will it be a big problem during an audit? I wouldn't say big, but it will be a problem if you don't do that. Everything is negotiable. Do you want to negotiate? There'll be a whole list of things you will want to negotiate. Do you want that list to have 10 items or just 2? Do you want to approach an audit with a 60, and these are real figures, with a 60 million shortfall or 20 million shortfall on the report, which is in fact only 10, but I'm just saying on the report, the 60 million, or do you want 20 million? What do you want to discuss? What is easier? Where are their expectations when they sit down at the table with you and they see 60 million on the report? Is it closer to 10 or closer to 30? Think about that. So yeah, and if you fix what we told you today, you can fix it. You can actually start fixing it before you even consider deploying the tool. You'll be in a much better place. You'll be in less risk, and you'll have a more transparent view of where your business may be improved. Bahadir, thank you very much. If you want to give any closing speech, I think we've almost come to the top of the hour.
Yeah, I mean, really, I also try to not to be too much a salesy guy in this session. You know, of course, I can promote Octopus up and down, but
I love it.
we really take care of the community. You know, this is important for me to mention here. You know, really, especially you, Alex, you do also a lot of stuff for the community with your videos, document training material and everything. And we do really also a lot of education from our side. We have also our Octopus SPLA community. And
the training on Monday, shall we mention it?
True. Yes, we have a SPLA fundamentals training on Monday, so feel free to register. If you have new team, new SPLA people in your organization, then it's a perfect opportunity to come and learn the foundational or the basics of SPLA licensing. Yeah, so we are really interested to help each other, make sure that we don't have this bad experiences with the auditors and so on. Really, just reach out to us, DM us. We don't have to do business all the time. Maybe we can give you a tip here, a tip there. Maybe another day you help me as well. You know, so you never know. So yeah, that's my closing words.
So I just posted the link to the training, but unfortunately, Restream only posted to YouTube. I can't send comments on to LinkedIn. Those of you who are on LinkedIn, DM me or Bahadir and ask for the link to the event, or you can just go to Octopus page, Octopus Cloud page on LinkedIn, and just look up the events. It's a long process than just asking whether you're at this. It's this. So today is this live is 13th of August. The training is on Monday, August 18th at 2 p.m. UK time, so 3 p.m. European time, and that is what 9 a.m. Eastern in the United States. Is it 9? Yes. So join the Octopus community. You have to be a member of the community, don't you? You do. And then you'll get access to the training. And we'll hopefully see you there.
Very good.
Buy a tool. No, I'm serious. It just you make my life easier too when we defend you in an audit.
Thank you very much, Sasha.
Thank you, Bahadir. Take care.
Take care.